All right, let's just dive right in. Today, we're untangling a cold case that's, just about 3,000 years old. In this explainer, we're going to separate the enduring myth of the legendary Queen of Sheba from the hard, undeniable historical reality of the Sabayan kingdom. For almost 3 millennia, you've got 3 of the world's major religious traditions telling variations of the exact same story. A fabulously wealthy, remarkably wise queen crossing a brutal desert to meet the most celebrated king of her age. It's this incredible tale of diplomacy, treasure, and intellect. But as we'll see, the historical record presents a totally fascinating and honestly perplexing mystery.
Now, the contrast here is just incredibly stark. On one hand, archaeologists have pulled absolute, unambiguous physical evidence of a thriving civilization known as Saba straight from the sands of ancient Yemen. We're talking massive cities, sprawling trade routes, towering temples, and thousands of carved inscriptions. But on the other hand, what they haven't found is her. There is absolute zero physical trace of the famous queen at the very center of this kingdom.
Which brings us to the ultimate puzzle we're exploring today. I mean, how does a ruler documented across 3 entire continents simply vanish from the physical record? Think about it. The Bible names her. The crown honors her. An Ethiopian tradition claims her as the mother of a royal line lasting all the way into the 20th century. Yet she's as elusive today as she was 1,000 years ago. So to figure out how this is even possible, we have to look past the myth and examine the very real foundations of her legendary kingdom.
Section 1. The Frankincense Fortune. To really investigate this mystery properly, we first need to look at the motive behind her enduring fame. And that comes down to the absolutely incredible wealth of her kingdom. You see, Saba wasn't just a kingdom, it was an economic powerhouse driven by a single commodity that literally fueled the ancient economy. And that commodity? Frankincense. Saba, located in modern-day Yemen, sat right at the geographical source of this incredibly valuable tree resin. Now, we might not think much about frankincense today, but in the ancient world, it was an absolute obsession. Egyptians were burning hundreds of tons of it in temple rituals, and Greek and Roman physicians were prescribing it for everything from infections to anxiety. Because Saba controlled this territory, they effectively taxed every single caravan moving this precious resource toward the great empires of Egypt, Rome, or Persia. Talk about a monopoly.
And harvesting frankincense was far from a quick process. Harvesters had to locate very specific trees in these rugged mountains, make super precise cuts into the bark, and then just wait, letting the sap slowly bleed out and harden in the harsh desert air. So, because the supply was strictly limited by this incredibly slow, deliberate process, but the ancient world's demand literally never let up, well, prices absolutely skyrocketed.
To really understand the immense geopolitical power of Saba, consider this absolutely wild anecdote. The Roman Emperor Nero reportedly burned an entire year's worth of Rome's frankincense supply at his wife's funeral. One funeral. It was a single gesture meant to demonstrate unthinkable wealth. At its peak, frankincense was basically the ancient equivalent of modern oil. And every single gram that reached the Mediterranean had to pass through Sabayan territory, piling up wealth on a scale that's honestly hard to even picture today.
Moving on to Section 2. Engineering a desert empire.
Now, immense wealth alone doesn't guarantee survival in the sun-blasted deserts of ancient Yemen. To build a lasting civilization in a place with almost no rain, you need something far more crucial than gold. You need groundbreaking engineering. Which brings us to a really crucial number, 600. That's the sheer length, in meters, of the Great Dam of Marib. Finished around the 8th century BCE, this was easily one of the most ambitious construction projects of the entire ancient world. Stretching nearly 600 meters across a valley, its sole job was to catch and tame the powerful, unpredictable, and historically destructive floods that swept down from the mountains every single year.
The Great Dam channeled those wild floodwaters through complex irrigation networks, literally transforming a barren desert into highly productive farmland. This system created robust harvests that fed a booming population year after year. We're talking tens of thousands of people eventually living in a place that should have been completely uninhabitable. Because the dam held strong for over 1,000 years, Marib grew into a thriving, highly sophisticated metropolis, a city undeniably rich and powerful enough to send a queen across the desert to negotiate with foreign kings as a true equal.
Which brings us to Section 3. 3 tales, 1 queen.
Having established the sheer reality of this desert empire, let's interview our historical witnesses. Look at how 3 major religious traditions, told thousands of kilometers apart, all perfectly converge on this one incredibly powerful figure. In the Hebrew Bible, an unnamed queen brings 4.5 tons of gold just to test King Solomon with hard questions. The Quran names her Bilqis, a sophisticated ruler who mistakes Solomon's glass palace floor for water. And then the Ethiopian Kebra Nagast names her Makeda, detailing a much deeper relationship where she becomes the mother of Solomon's son, Menelik, who is actually said to have brought the Ark of the Covenant back to Ethiopia. Surviving for nearly 3 millennia, the consistency of her impact across these texts is just truly remarkable.
But to understand why these two famous monarchs would actually meet, we have to look at the geopolitical map. King Solomon controlled the northern end of the most valuable ancient trade networks between Egypt and Mesopotamia. The Queen of Sheba? Well, she controlled the southern source of those exact same routes. So a meeting between these two wasn't just a courtesy call or a casual curiosity. No, this was a highly strategic, high-stakes economic negotiation between two regional powerhouses who had every single financial reason to talk, negotiate, and collaborate.
Section 4. The missing evidence.
So, despite a perfectly logical diplomatic motive for her existence, our historical investigation hits a massive brick wall in Yemen. The reality of the dirt simply does not match the certainty of the texts. You see, when archaeologists began serious excavations in the 20th century, they found exactly what they expected of a great empire. They found the massive moon temple of Awam and thousands of Sabayan inscriptions detailing kings, priests, wars, and century-spanning commercial deals. They proved, without a doubt, that Saba's wealth, power, and engineering were entirely real. Yet, across all these centuries of exhaustive written records, not a single inscription names our queen. Not by name, not by title. The kingdom is everywhere, but the queen is literally nowhere.
This total absence has pushed researchers toward a really fascinating twist. She might not be one single person. Some historians suggest Queen of Sheba actually functioned a lot more like the title Caesar or Pharaoh, an office held by many over generations. So, over time, the massive achievements of several powerful Sabayan rulers, which definitely included women, could have easily merged in the cultural memory of the ancient world into one single composite figure, a legend magnified to be much, much bigger than any one human life.
Let's look at Section 5, the fall of Saba. While modern scholars continue to debate her true identity, the physical evidence shows that Saba met a definitive, catastrophic end in this sort of tragic domino effect. By the early centuries of the Common Era, new sea routes began bypassing the land caravans, which severely cut the kingdom's vital tax revenue. This economic shift sparked severe political instability, and with less money and a weaker central authority, the constant, necessary upkeep of the Great Dam of Marib fell drastically behind. After decades of really dangerous neglect, around 570 CE, which interestingly some accounts note is the year the Prophet Muhammad was born, the Great Dam catastrophically collapsed.
And the collapse of the dam wasn't just a flood. It was the erasure of an entire civilization. Without agriculture, the city starved. Without the city, the trade networks vanished. The people scattered. The sand moved right in where lush harvests used to grow. The physical kingdom of Saba literally washed away into the desert sands, leaving behind only the resilient mythological memory of its fame.
As we wrap up this explainer, the Queen of Sheba sits in this strange twilight between history and legend. The wealth, the cities, and the engineering of her world were completely, 100% real, even if she herself remains the missing piece. So I'll leave you with this. Does her exact historical identity even matter at this point? Or is the true, enduring legacy of Sheba simply the unprovable, irresistible allure of the unknown? The search in the sands of Arabia continues today, and even after 3,000 years, it really doesn't look like we're going to stop looking anytime soon.